What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the after credit scene. We are talking Ironheart, all 6 episodes. Got a whole bunch of things to get through, all of our comments, spoiler and spoiler free. Before we get to all that, please like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the other buttons, do all the things, and then share this video all across the multiverse. Spoiler free review real quick. I really enjoyed the show. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I was kind of hesitant given that the promo material hadn't really been going heavy for several months, that they kind of prepped it and told you it was coming, and then it was in between Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. There wasn't a whole lot, but I really enjoyed it. I think if you give it a chance, you really will too. I don't think, even though they talk about Tony Stark, it is not Stark heavy when it comes to trying to remind you of Stark things and remind you that she is or isn't Tony Stark. She doesn't really talk about it as much as you think she would if they were going to layer it on really heavy. There are a few things in there that are throwbacks and are in the vein of Iron Man, because those are the things that she's pursuing and those are the things that she's doing. And so it is in and around that world, similar to the things of Bucky as the Winter Soldier, having to do with Captain America, or even Anthony Mackie whenever he's doing certain things as the Falcon, that it's kind of all in that same realm. Same as John Walker in Thunderbolts, when he's talking about things and it's connected to Captain America things. That kind of soft-handed remarks, rather than something that's just constantly reminding you that she is or isn't Tony Stark. There are a lot of haters out there. There's a whole lot of comments and a whole lot of people that didn't like it at all, and I get that. There's a lot of things that people wanted it to be bigger, wanted it to be different, or just flat out don't like the idea that she is not Tony Stark. And then you've got stuff that is probably way far to the extreme, where somebody is expecting it to be as good or better than Endgame, and you have people that are comparing it to Loki and things like that, that it's not that great, but it's also not so bad that it deserves to be horrible and MCU is gone and all these kind of things. And you're going to have responses on both ends that are way off base and are fueled by things that might be hateful or might be misinformed or things like that. So I would encourage you to give it a shot. Understand that it may not be exactly what you're thinking, and it involves a lot of different elements that you wouldn't really expect out of something in the Iron Man vein, but I think those are the things that makes it refreshing. I think the pacing is great. I think keeping it to 6 episodes, they trimmed a lot of the fat. There wasn't an episode that felt like it was too much filler. If anything, the first episode, for the first 15 or 20 minutes, actually felt like a little bit of filler. It was things that if you'd watched Wakanda Forever, they kind of talked about, things that felt like, okay, let's just get to it. But after that, everything was her own story and her own thing and had its own development. And by the end of that first episode, I was all on board. Okay, this is where we're going. I thought it was really great in that regard. The wrap-up was actually really good, left me wanting more. And the effects and the time that you see her in a suit or not in a suit, or all these different elements, I think played off very, very well. And it was actually written very well in terms of the characters that they used, making the world seem big. It felt like it was in Chicago, but it did not involve a ton of characters. So it felt tighter, but it also felt like it was part of the bigger MCU. So took a lot of swings in directions that were pretty big for a TV show in its first 6-run season. I think you're going to like it. I really do think you're going to enjoy it, and I think it has its own place in the new MCU moving forward. So if that's as far as you've gotten, you haven't finished it, leave it here, put a pin in it, come back. But here's all my spoiler-free reviews, and we're going to try to go through this pretty quick because there's some really good highlights, and I'm just going to hit the highlights as we talk about the overall story. Like I said, first off, I really loved that they redid the AI. I think Riri getting kicked out of MIT was a great bullet point, because her having the resources, or the possibility of the resources that she needs, it didn't really sit well with me. She needed to be able to figure this out differently. I also think that her being somebody that plays by the rules did not really fit well with her, that she she has her own kind of bad boy persona and that kind of thing that Tony Stark also had too, that made us like a character that is cocky enough to power their own superhero suit as opposed to just making it automated. Or using their technology to protect people in a way that didn't involve them actually personally. You know, Tony always talked about he wants to put a suit of armor around the world. He wants to protect the world like he's protecting himself, so that he can protect others. And Ironheart, she has a lot of the same motivations. She wants to protect people, but knowing how to manage her own life to do that has a lot more gray area in it, and she makes a lot of mistakes. I think her being a young college student, her being somebody that hasn't had a lot of opportunities, her being somebody that is very smart in terms of her book smarts and her brilliance, but not very smart when it comes to picking friends or making choices that are good for her or even the best. She's going to make some emotional decisions, and we see that going throughout the show. She gets into some situations that she thinks, I can put myself in this situation and be okay, even though everything around me is morally gray or wrong. I'm here for this reason, even though these people are doing this. And I think it's part of her character development. She has to understand, you in order to be all good, you can't put yourself in these situations. And I think that's still ongoing even when the series ends. The high point at the end of episode 1 where her AI, she wakes up to Natalie as her visual representation of her AI, I thought was excellent. I think it really led into and played well into how she's dealing with her trauma. It made it easy to throw in these backstory elements because Natalie could be that go-between, and she's a visual representation all the time of what's going on. I liked that version of an AI too, rather than just a voice that she's talking to, having something to interact with, having something that when the suit is being powered by the AI, it feels like it's being powered by a person, that those relationships are her heart. And that's what her suit is powered by. The only thing throughout the entire series that bothered me at all early on was, and I'll have to go back and watch it again, it didn't seem like they explained very well how she powered the suit. Now, they talked about it had to recharge, so it obviously doesn't last as long as something with an arc reactor in it. But how is it powered, and what is it powered with that allows it to do all the things that it does for, let's say, 8 hours, 10 hours max? That's a lot. And so being able to do that and have those capabilities stretched believability a little bit more so than something like the magic elements that they throw in, because you kind of, okay, magic's not real, but I'm going to suspend belief because it's just part of this universe. They've kind of tried to explain everything else that has some grounding, and they didn't really do that until later on when she is trying to figure out how to power the suit that she's building from the parts from her car. And so it took them a little long to get to that, and then by the time they showed you something that explained that a little bit, they threw in the magic element and kind of put that to rest. So that was the only little bit of wonky part there for me, but it was such a small thing that I kind of let it go, and I assumed on my part they probably said it and I didn't catch it. Moving past Natalie being her AI, even giving her an acronym for her name being some kind of AI name was pretty clever as well. But her finding this group of people that are trying to stick it to the big guy, the big corporation, and even Anthony Ramos's character, Parker Robbins, kind of plays this off like a Robin Hood character, and I think that's the imagery that they're going for, is that he's this Robin Hood guy. He knows how to do better than these evil corporations, and then you find out his ulterior motives were much worse. Juxtaposed with somebody like Riri, who looks like she is in bed with all these criminals, but she's really trying to do something good. I thought the back and forth play was really good, even up until the finale and the decisions she makes moving forward. But by the second episode, I was really hooked into the moments where I had thoughts and feelings like I did when I was watching Iron Man movies. I wanted to see her in the suit. I wanted to see what different gadgets and contraptions she came up with the suit. I was invested in her relationship with Natalie and how that was going to work. I loved actually being able to see her AI and her kind of having to fight with it more than just a conversation with a computer that she could just tell to do whatever. It actually kind of had some pushback because since it was mapped off of her brainwaves, it had her memories and it had her attitude too, and it was kind of pushing back against her. It was kind of this argument with herself, but in the body of her friend. It was actually a really nice touch and gave the show a lot of heart. All of the supporting cast, her mother, Xavier, her friends, Joe, her finding Joe and trying to figure out, trying to get help to do the things that she's doing, I thought were really great additions, but it made the universe feel bigger, but it kept the story small. When you find out later on in episode 3, there's a big moment there. Not only does she get involved in a situation where she protects herself, but it ends up causing someone to get killed. And regardless of whether they were a good person or a bad person or not, and it gets her in more trouble, she is clearly upset by the fact that she not only killed somebody, even if she was trying to protect herself, but she also got Joe in trouble, who we learned in this episode was Ezekiel Stain, which I thought was a really great introduction and just a very quick, why did he do what he did? What were some of you got some backstory pieces from the end of Iron Man that you never would have gotten before. Everybody thinks that Obadiah Stane died in a positive manner, which really paints Tony in a better light, because you find out after all these years that he didn't throw Obadiah under the bus, and he didn't say that Obadiah was a bad guy. Everybody thought that he perished in a plane crash, and so everybody believed that, but Zeke knows something different, and I thought this dichotomy between is he a good guy, is he a bad guy, and his little origin story was really good as well. As we move into episode 4, and we have interaction, we have some of the fallout from all the things that happened and how Riri is going to deal with that. Getting interactions with characters like Zelma, and just magic being thrown into it immediately. There was no explanation. It was just, we're talking about chakras and crystals, and this person has a lot of power. And they threw out this idea of pocket dimensions and private areas in these other dimensions, and even little throwbacks to Zelma's character from the comics about brain maggots and things like that were very quickly done, and it just kind of relied on it's a Easter egg. If you want to pursue it, you can. If you don't, it just kind of added something fun to the episode. But they moved into it so quickly, and they kind of let you know that Zelma's still training and she doesn't have it all together. So maybe she pops up in some Doctor Strange stuff. Maybe she doesn't, but her kind of being this rogue element in this and everybody kind of being new to this world, I thought was a really good feel, because it added a lot of heart to it when they all had to come together and work with what they had. The fights in episode 5 between Ezekiel and all of Parker's crew going after Riri and her having to figure out how to fight without her equipment, I thought was really great. I thought that moment of her putting the suit on, the suit escaping from the car, her putting it on, crashing into the ground, stopping the car, was a very iconic Iron Man moment. And it was cool enough that I wanted to stop it and watch it. It just really built to a great crescendo, but it was not overdone. There wasn't a lot of slow-mo moments and things that tried to make you okay, we get it, she's cool. It didn't work too hard to do that, but it still pulled it off. And so I thought those things were great. I thought ending up that episode with a flashback of Parker Robbins, and they make episode 5 a little longer to do that. How things happen with Joe, how things happen with his friend John, why he was at the house that he ends up at the end, which you find out is his father, and how he comes into contact with Mephisto, was really great. I loved the little Dormammu throws, which were hints to things that happened in the comic, but they used it to introduce Mephisto instead because they've already used Dormammu, but throwing those things together and using them to tie a story together that allowed them to introduce this character. And even the moment in episode 6 where they introduce Mephisto, there's this really big build-up and the crescendo of the music, and then, because this moment is big for everybody outside of the MCU, all the fans, except for people in the MCU. Nobody knows who he is. And so there's this big crescendo, and then it gets cut off immediately because Riri says, oh, is that supposed to mean something to me? I was actually not disappointed with her choosing Mephisto's deal, not just because, oh, it's a deal with the devil, because we know who Mephisto is. But her making this deal because this is the thing that she wants. Now, her being stupid enough to think that she can control it, she feels like she's giving him his cloak back, and all she wants is her friend. They make a connection in episode 5 that this magic that she's using, they're really not sure where it's coming from or why it got rid of her AI. I think it's going to be an Ezekiel Stain type of situation where she ends up being controlled by something else through her suit. But we know that the way that Parker Robbins got rid of the robe, and he was still alive, and he says, oh, it hurts. I think, to me, was reminiscent of the palladium poisoning that Tony had in Iron Man 2. And but that she is infected by something else, and how is it going to affect her? And so I wasn't really bothered by those things. I saw some of the connections, or maybe I made some connections there. But I also remembered she's still struggling. She still had trauma. She has just handled this thing, and she's in a little bit of a cocky mode. She sees an opportunity to get her friend back and doesn't see the downside of it yet. I think the connections there and the pushing it forward into something else is actually really good, and it did not bother me at all. I think good people have to learn how to be good sometimes, and they have to make bad choices, even if it's something where they go, oh, I should have known that was the devil. Similar to how Tony thinks he's doing something good with Ultron, and it ultimately turns out to be bad. Oh, I thought I was doing a good thing, and I'm not. Didn't really bother me. It was just a decision she made that she might have to walk back. It was such a big wrong decision that you wanted some resolution to it rather than it ending on such a oh no moment. But the rest of the characters, I thought all of those elements were really great, and I wanted to see her reunited with Natalie. So being able to have that moment, even if it was for the wrong reasons, was still really great. And her being able to start figuring out how to connect the two in her lab, I thought was a really great element as well. And so it ended up well, right down to the little details with Mephisto stirring his coffee and then tapping it on the edge, and you see the reflection of the comic book accurate Mephisto. I thought was really great. I thought the addition of Sacha Baron Cohen as that character was awesome. That's a big pull for a show like that. I also thought the casting of Zeke Stain with Alden Ehrenreich was a great casting as well, and I think we'll see more of him in the future too. As a Marvel show and as a new character, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, and I want to see more of it. I think she could really fit in as an Iron Man type character, even if she's not Tony Stark. I think the dynamic and the personality was done really well, and they didn't try too hard to replace Tony. They just tried to tell this person's story, and I actually thought it went really well. I think that it is top 10 Marvel shows for sure. It was solid. I think it would be fighting close to top 5 for me. 5th or 6th maybe, actually. Loki, WandaVision, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, and then you can get into some discussions there with the rest of them. I think 5th or 6th is actually a really good show, and I enjoyed it. Where it goes from here, I think it could bleed into Doctor Strange again, or Secret Wars, or it could blend into some other TV shows. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. I'm okay with Marvel exploring all these other different avenues and just being able to pull from anything they want to tell the stories they want to tell. I think that's a lot more fun than just we have to follow this particular path towards this particular Avengers movie. I like never knowing who's going to pop up. So I'm curious what you guys think. A lot of haters, a lot of people that love it, very divided. I think just sit back and enjoy it. I love that we're getting these stories and that Marvel is still willing to tell different stories. And there's directors and actors that are willing to give their all to it. So let us know when you think in the comments. Hit the subscribe button, do all the things, and then check out our other videos. We got a lot of other things you can sink your teeth into. And as always, guys, when the next one drops, we'll catch you right back here. Later.